Hey everybody, and Tony here with a review of Verdi's Rigoletto, which was shown at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. The conductor was Roberto Rizzi-Brignoli. The production was by Jan Bosse. The set design was by Stéphane Lemay. The costumes were by Catherine Platt. The chorus master was William Spalding. And the dramaturgy was by Jörg Königsdorf. Now, Rigoletto is one of those operas by Giuseppe Verdi that has further skyrocketed his fame. The first one being Nabucco, with the ever popular quote unquote national anthem, second national anthem for Italy, Va Pensiero. But Rigoletto really furthered Giuseppe Verdi's fame as a composer because of a few reasons. The first being it's an opera that has a lot of dark themes, whether it's sex, rape, violence, murder. Of course, you see a lot of murder happening in a lot of Verdi's operas. I mean, come on. Macbeth, Louisa Miller, um, oh yeah, I Due Foscari, you name it. And also Attila. Yes, those are the four operas. Oh, and lest I forget, I Masnadieri. Yes, those are the operas that have themes of murder in it. But Rigoletto has more than just murder. Like I said, it has sex and it has a bit of violence. And it has a lot of debauchery, mostly coming from the decadent court of the Duke of Mantova. Now, this guy is very despicable as a character, but he has one of the most beautiful and very, very well known pieces of music, and one of them has to be La Donna è mobile. You know, the one that goes, La donna è mobile, qual più mal vento, muta d'argento e di pensiero. Yes, if you heard this in a lot of your favorite cartoons, movies, anime, and sitcoms, then you'll probably recognize this famous aria. Heck, it's very famous as a lot of tenors have found themselves singing this very beautiful yet very, very cynical aria. You name it, whether it's Pavarotti, Domingo, Carreras, Di Stefano, Del Monaco, Valetti, um, Juan Diego Flores, Rolando Fireton, Piotr Peshala, you name it, they have all sung it. And like I said, the Duke has a lot of fantastic music, especially my personal favorite, Possente Amor Mi Chiama, in which some tenors would attempt the high D, which is usually interpolated, others choose not to. But it always depends on how they usually feel or if their voice is totally right for that extra high D. But it's still such a fantastic role, even though he is such a huge jerk-ass. Now, Rigoletto is a very fascinating character as well, because he is one of those father characters that Verdi is very well known for writing. I mean, come on, you have fathers like Banco from Macbeth, Nabucco, Count Walter, and Miller from Louisa Miller, Amonasro from Aida, the King of Egypt, also from Aida, Simon Boccanegra, Giorgio Germont. Those are pretty much the fathers, the well-known fathers of Verdi's operas, and he's usually that great in writing father and daughter relationships. And with Rigoletto and Gilda's relationship, it's very, very tight, but it's also full of a few elements of darkness because Rigoletto is not only concerned for his daughter, but Gilda feels like she's practically a caged bird under her own father's two eyes. Yeah, that's pretty sad, isn't it? But just like the Duke, Rigoletto has a lot of fantastic music as well, such as the blood raising exciting and very, very thrilling Cortigiani Razza Danata, in which he damns the courtiers for their cruel treatment and for their lustful lifestyle. He basically calls them out on their bullshit, so to say. And it's a very exciting aria for any baritone with the right voice for Rigoletto. A lot of great baritones have sung this fantastic role, like Leo Nucci, Tito Gobbi, Sesto Bruscantini, Leonard Warren, Lawrence Tibbett, Robert Merrill, Cheryl Milnes. The list practically goes on and on and on and on. And there is no doubt that a lot of great Verdi baritones would perform this fantastic and very iconic character. Now, Gilda has some of the most lovely and the most elegant pieces of music ever heard in this opera. Whereas the Duke's music is full of bravado and a hint of machismo, or lots of machismo, Rigoletto's is quite disquieting and full of wrath. Gilda's is sweet, innocent, and just very gentle on the ears and very, very elegant when it comes to the right soprano singing Gilda. And with Caro Nome, some sopranos would usually attempt the interpolated high E, others would choose not to. Yeah, but she has the most sorrowfully beautiful and very poignant piece of music in Tutte le feste al Tempio. So, yes, when it comes to dark themes mixed with a lot of fantastic music from the three leads, there's no doubt that Rigoletto has become a household name. Also, the quartet, lest I forget about the famous quartet, the one that goes, Bella figlia dell'amore, schiavo son dei vezzi tuoi. Oh, yes, I am sure that you've heard this in Looney Tunes a lot. And this has actually become very famous, lest I forget. So, yes, with that out of the way, let's talk about the production. Now, the production hasn't really resonated with me as a whole. It basically felt like I was watching a very seedy part of New York City or Las Vegas, or basically think the Las Vegas production of Rigoletto that was shown at the Met, only trashier. Yeah, that's this production of Rigoletto in a nutshell. And just by seeing the trailers of this production, I was kind of put off by it because it was just rubbing me the wrong way. It looked so dreary and so dark that it just didn't really resonate with me. It almost repelled me. And sure, there were some things that were quite distracting, like the courtiers dancing in the Duke's cabaletta and the jazz disco dancing in the first scene. I thought that was unintentionally hilarious. The costumes basically are from the 1970s, so to say. And Gilda's costume is pretty much the only one, well, just in the first act, that kind of has any sort of traditional background. It still looks beautiful. And I also like her quote unquote wedding dress and the attire that she puts on as a youth before she gets killed. Although initially she was supposed to go to Verona with Daddy, but still. Yeah. And what was with that ridiculous looking costume in the first scene of the opera that Rigoletto had to wear? I thought it looked rather ridiculous beyond belief. I mean, he looked as though that he was like something out of a Maurice Sendak picture or something, as if though that he looked like he was some character that got out of Where the Wild Things Are and just simply went into this opera for some reason or another. I was completely thinking to myself, what the hell? That costume that Rigoletto initially wore just seemed ridiculous. I mean, come on. I would rather want him in a more colorful costume rather than just all gold. Why can't he have something like red, green, yellow, all the colors of the damn rainbow, for goodness sake? Rather than that type of ridiculous costume where he almost looks like friggin' Snuffleupagus from Sesame Street. It just didn't resonate with me very well. But the lighting at times saves it. And at times, the production itself can do some things pretty cool, like elevate and simply go down. And I thought those were pretty cool. Another cool thing basically has to be the male chorus in hoodies, basically vocalizing the storm scene as if though that they're like Sparafucile's gang of murderers, so to say. So yeah, the production definitely rubbed me the wrong way. It almost feels rather uncalled for to have this type of production, and like I said, it's like the Las Vegas production of Rigoletto that was shown at the Met, only a little bit more trashy. So yes, now that doesn't mean I didn't like the singers. In fact, I really felt that there was a lot of fine singing all throughout, starting with Markus Bruck as Rigoletto. Now, to his credit, he has such a powerful, very resonant, and very, very, very masculine sounding voice, a muscular sounding voice. And his tone is extremely homogeneous all throughout. There are some tendencies in which he is quite hammy, but what more can you expect from a court jester? Well, at times, ham up the place once in a while. Yeah, there were times that he was almost a bit too hammy for this type of part, especially with his first encounter with Monterone. And speaking of which, this opera is also about revenge, so yeah, it's pretty much common in Verdi's operas. But anyways, going to Bruck as Rigoletto, he has a very Germanic sounding tone, since he himself is German and has specialized in a lot of German works, whether it's Richard Strauss, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and even Wagner. Yeah, his style is basically more resonant with that of Wagner. Yeah. But his singing is still that fantastic, and his acting is pretty good all throughout. But like I said, his voice is pretty much the best asset of this role. Then we have his daughter, Gilda, sung by Elena Zalagova. I thought she was very, very pretty in this role. She had a very pretty voice that she used very, very well in Caro Nome. However, in Si Vendetta, she really, really, really strained on the high E flat when she sang it pretty fully, but then it thinned out prematurely, very prematurely, to the point where she really shrieked it. She basically shrieked that high E flat. And I thought that really didn't do good for her voice, but she managed to pick up the pace later on in the second act, where I thought she was able to shine a lot more. So, yes, despite that noticeable shortcoming, she did a pretty good job. It's just that she has to be very careful in terms of whether she has to sing that high E flat or not. And I was also quite astonished that she didn't sing the usually interpolated high C sharp after Addio, Addio, Speranza Anima duet with the Duke. But still, she has a pretty good instrument, though she has to be a little bit more cautious next time, especially when singing those extra high notes that are usually interpolated. But still, it's a good instrument all throughout. And then we have The Duke, sung by Italian tenor Piero Preti, who basically replaced David Lomelli in this part because I think he had some other engagements. So Preti was a substitute, and I thought he was very, very fantastic. He was pretty much the star of the evening next to that of Marcus Bruck's Rigoletto. I thought he had a fantastic instrument. He had such a powerful, ringing voice. It's quite a pity that he didn't sing the high D after Possente Amor, but still, he had such a beautiful instrument with such great top notes. His high A's and B's are just epic. Besides, he also sang a lot of full lyric tenor roles and some spinto tenor roles as well. So it really shows that for someone this young, he has a lot of great experience. However, there is one shortcoming. His eyes in the first act weren't really that living. They weren't really that alive to me, but he managed to catch up in the second act. Still, he had such a fantastic instrument that he used very, very well. Then we have Sparafugile, sung by Tobias Kayla. He was able to put in a sense of mystery to such an enigmatic character like Sparafugile, and his voice was still maintaining that delicate beauty and that sonorous and very full and rich resonance that really associates with a basso. His low F may not be as gravelly as, let's say, Matti Talvela's or Matti Salminen's or any other basso profondo of the past, but it has a lot of great potential. I'm sure that with a few more years to come, it'll become fuller and fuller and fuller to the point where it sounds extremely cavernous. But still, he does a very great job in making Sparafugile a very enigmatic figure throughout the stage. Then we have Monterone, sung by Bastian Effernick, who was Klingsor about a week ago in Parsifal. Now, for the role of Monterone, I kind of expected a more um, gravelly, a more cavernous sounding voice, since Monterone states that his voice is like thunder and all that. Yeah, Bastian Effernick as Monterone, I thought could have been better. His voice is a bit too small in this part, though I will say that he did a lot better in this part than that of Klingsor in terms of voice. Yeah, sure, his voice is a bit small for this role. I really would have wanted a more gravelly sounding voice, but as it is, it's actually pretty okay. At least it's slightly better than his performance as Klingsor from Parsifal. I thought that part was way too heavy for him. Here, as Monterone, I thought he was pretty okay in this role, and his acting really compensated for having such a voice that's not really suitable to a very authoritative and very powerful figure like Monterone. His acting was actually really good for such a character role. Still, he did a pretty okay job all throughout. And then we have Maddalena and Giovanna, sung by Dana Beth Miller, who I saw about 3 months ago as La Checa. She did fantastically in both roles. For Giovanna, she was able to make her a very concerned yet somehow very naive caretaker. But with Maddalena, it's another story. She was able to make her very sexy, very charming, and with all of the assets. Big boobs, a nice ass, just beautiful all throughout. Her singing was actually a lot better than her performance as La Checa. I thought she was totally great as both Giovanna and Maddalena. especially in the storm scene, where I thought, oh my god, she was just fantastic, along with Mr. Kera and Miss Zaragoza. So we go to the more secondary roles, so to say, and then we have some fantastic standouts coming from John Chest as Marullo, Matthew Newlin as Matteo Borsa, and Seth Carrico as the Count Ceprano. Now, John Chest was absolutely fantastic as Marullo. He was able to play Marullo as this cool, jerk-ass type of person that I absolutely loved with a passion. Sure, we're supposed to hate Marullo. I mean, come on, he is a huge prick to almost everyone around him, especially Rigoletto. But he's also the Duke's cronies as well. So, yeah, he was able to give Marullo a lot of personality. He was able to give Marullo so much flair and so much frisson that it was just so captivating. He was able to make great use of such a thankless character role for a baritone. I thought he did fantastically. He was able to pull all the stops in making Marullo such a despicable yet pretty charming type of character, more than a crony, so to say. Yeah, I thought Mr. Chess did so fantastically as Marullo. Matthew Newlin was fantastic as Borsa as well in terms of voice. Sure, his voice is slightly darker than that of Piero Preti's voice, but it's a wonderful instrument all the same. It was able to contrast with Preti's more bravado singing, and I felt that he blended very well in the first scene before the Duke sings Questa Quella. I thought Matthew did such a fantastic job with another thankless role, this time for a tenor. And then we have Seth Carrico as the Count Ceprano. He was able to make great use of such a thankless role for a bass baritone, and he pulled all the stops at making the Count pretty dignified, yet also pretty much a douchebag, just like the rest of his companions. And lest I forget, I felt that Matthew Newlin did a pretty good job acting-wise as Borsa, and making him not just a crony, but also a pretty boy crony, so to say. With Seth Carrico as Count Ceprano, I felt that he was able to put all the stops in making him a very dignified type of crony, which is a lot of fun to see, but he's still douchebaggy all the same, the Count Ceprano. So overall, these three wonderful vocalists did fantastically as these thankless characters. Then we have Shaban Stagg, Noel Bowley, and Christina Zidak in the very small roles of the Countess Ceprano, the usher, and the court lady. I thought they did fantastically. For such very small parts, they sang very well. So overall, the singing was very solid all throughout, and the conducting by Maestro Rizzi Brignoli was fantastic. It was basically so energetic and it's so full of life. It basically got my blood pumping all throughout, especially with Cortegiani Velrata Danata and Si Vendetta. I thought those were the highlights of this opera because of just how much detail Maestro Rizzi Brignoli placed with such fire and passion, and it's just amazing with just how fine his conducting is. So overall, despite a very lackluster production, I felt that the singing was fine all throughout and the conducting was excellent. If you haven't seen this production already, then if you're not a purist, then you can go check it out. But I warn you, if you're a purist, you might as well skip it. If you're the type of person who probably is a little bit more open-minded and very forgiving in terms of production, then I say go ahead and check it out. Check it out. And if you're morbidly curious, well, go check it out. But don't say I didn't warn you in terms of the production. You will get some fine singing, but with the production, you've been warned. But all the same, just check it out. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for tomorrow's review, where I review Bizet's Carmen, which is also going to be shown at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. Until then, this is Antoni signing off and wishing you all a good night.